Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first office hours at Trade Ideas U. My name is Scott Olson, Director of Marketing at Trade Ideas. The audience is muted. Please type your questions into the question panel. And your host today is going to be Jamie Hodge, our Director of Education. Can I have you all just type into the questions panel really quick if you can hear me okay, and if you can see Einstein at the chalkboard on your screen? Perfect. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to ask a couple quick questions. First of all, use the poll that popped up in front of your screen to tell me if you're currently a Trade Ideas subscriber. So either you have an active subscription or you don't. It's a binary question. It's just going to help Jamie with this presentation to know how we should continue to roll through. And since this is an educational webinar, I'm expecting us to have a majority subscribers for this one. So let's see how that, my guess, comes out. All right, most of you have voted, so I'll go ahead and close that and share it. So it looks like we do have a majority of Trade Ideas subscribers. I think this is the highest percentage of subscribers in one of our webinars. Usually we have at least 30 or 40% prospective subscribers. And follow up to that, since you all are subscribers, and pertaining to this webinar, is have you taken Trade Ideas training yet? Jamie teaches our Hour Power training that is complimentary to every subscriber. And we know that it's something you need to schedule and make an effort to do. We're trying to always make that easier and easier. This will be something that will also help us with this webinar and future webinars. Okay, so it looks like 35% of you have. The rest of you need to go ahead and submit your preferred schedule to get training. To do that, go to tradeideas.com. On the footer, scroll all the way down, there's a link to training underneath support. If you click that, you'll find a form there where you can request your training. And one more quick one. Are you currently an oddsmaker? Did you purchase an oddsmaker license if you're a Trade Ideas subscriber? A lot of you currently don't have a license for the oddsmaker yet. It's going to be required for the AI channel, which is launching soon. Although, you don't need to have the oddsmaker or the AI to use Trade Ideas at all. It's simply an advanced feature that can really help you improve your strategy development. Great. So it looks like it's almost half and half here. We actually have the majority here that our subscribers have the oddsmaker. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to turn you over to Jamie. I'll come back to help Jamie answer some questions and thank everyone at the end, and or if he needs any help in the meantime. Jamie?
Thank you, Scott. Well, happy Monday to everyone. Certainly want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your Monday to come attend the webinar today. And so before we get started real quick here, just a little legal disclaimer so that all of you know that none of the material that we are presenting here today is meant to be investment advice. We are not registered investment advisors. Everything that we share with you guys today is simply meant to be for educational purposes only. Okay. So today what we're going to talk about is what may seem like some very simple stuff, but goes very underutilized by the majority of clients that use Trade Ideas. First and foremost, we're going to talk about colorization on the top list and how we can do that a number of different ways. And then we're going to venture on into the custom formulas so that, specifically if a certain filter that you're wanting to use is not available, then sometimes we can create a custom formula so that you can see that information. All right, so moving right along here, let me get my desktop up and we shall proceed here. So what I've got up right now is just a very simple layout. I've got a chart up here for intraday in a 5-minute time frame that we can take a look at some things at. Now what I've got right here is a top list. Okay, so when we're talking about colorization of a top list, there's a couple of different things that we can do to apply certain colors to whatever field that we feel is important. All right, so Just to explain real quick what this top list is doing, well, first and foremost, those of you who've had a training session already know that the filter set has to be satisfied in order for the stock to even show up on the list here. So for example, if we just take a quick peek at the filter set, there's not a lot of rocket science going on here. What I originally designed this top list for was to help me find stocks that have made significant moves in a short amount of time. In this case, we're focusing on the change in the past 30-minute period. So what I've got here are some minimums and maximums. So I only want to see things that have moved at least 1.5% up or down in the past 30-minute period. And then I've attached some pretty loose filter settings here as far as price go, 1 to 200. Nothing crazy down here. Trying to keep the really thinly traded stuff out. So I'm saying only 300,000 a day average for the past 5 days. So pretty simple stuff right there. Now, when the market is open, obviously this top list is doing its job. It's showing me, relevant information in all of these columns. Of course, that's not all I have here. It's not just change in the 30-minute period like you see here. But you might notice when I click on some of these other columns, like change in the 30-minute period, anything other than relative volume, you might notice that the color scheme is a little out of focus here. Now, if I resort all of a sudden by relative volume, now we've got a nice gradient color that's being displayed here. And as we're looking at the relative volume column here and sorting by the greatest value down to the smallest value, we can set up color schemes to set up the gradient based on values that we've established in the column that we'd like to colorize by. So for example, if I right click and I come to select colors, you'll notice over here in the right margin the relative volume is what I'm currently colorizing by. So all you do is you select which column you'd like to colorize by. Then we set up a gradient here using this little panel right here. So if I just scoot this down a little bit, what I've done is set up greater than and less than values right here. So if it's greater than or less than 5 or 3 or 2 or 1, depending on where it is in the relative volume, we'll get the nice gradient color to present itself as these tiers are hit. Okay? And as we get down to 1, you can see, we have the wider color here. So we've got these pre-configured color schemes that you can pick. And then also, anytime you want to establish a, a complete custom color, we do allow, for that as well. So we can always define a custom color by coming in here and setting up, whatever shade of any color that we would choose to create that custom color for. So the custom color panel, it's pretty straightforward, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. So you can always use the predefined color schemes, or you can set up your own. Or, it's just about getting in there and exploring it and putting some things in place and seeing how it affects your top list. But that's the first way that we can colorize, by picking out, okay, by default, and by the way, I should point out that this list default sorts by relative volume. And we can also tell the system which column we'd like to default sort by just simply clicking on the Sort tab. And as you can see, once again, there's relative volume, and then I'm telling it to sort biggest on top. Of course, we could sort smallest on top if that's the route we wanted to take. So establishing the default sort column, and then simply popping in here and setting up the color by selecting that column again, setting up our breakpoints and our tiers and assigning the colors. And that's the first methodology by which we can colorize a top list. So depending on what your go-to metric is, you can set that colorization up. Now also, I'd like to also have some color in this column. This is the change in the 30-minute column. So all of a sudden, I can click by stocks that are up the most in that 30-minute period, or stocks that are down the most in the past 30-minute period. And you might notice that anything that's up or down in excess of 2% is showing the yellow color here, because I've also programmed this to act in that capacity. So if we want to change a certain another column and say, okay, if the values of this column exceed this amount, I'd like to add additional color, then all we do is we right-click right on the icon there, and then we can say set up custom colors for the change in the 30-minute period. And just like we set up the colors for relative volume, you can see that if it's greater than or less than 2, then I'd like it to be yellow. And so you can see it's exactly what it's doing. 2% or higher. I'm not sure exactly why that one is not yellow. And then, of course, that's the below, or 2% down. And then here we can see anything above 2% up is going to be highlighted in yellow. So this is some real simple stuff that we can do within a top list that could very well be the difference between you seeing that one alert that did really well today or missing it. A lot of the times, whether we rely on our ears or our eyes, that can be the difference between missing or gleaning that valuable piece of data for the day. So pretty straightforward with the colorization here. Another thing that we, what I've set up for today too, is how we can take a custom formula and insert it into a top list or an alert window. A good example of that is this window that we're currently viewing. I'm showing some volume filters here. So in addition to relative volume and how much the stock has moved in the past 30-minute period, and by the way, let's just take a look at AXPW today, because that was all over my alert windows and my top list windows today. So here we have AXPW in a intraday 5-minute chart. So here we have AXPW, the opening bar here. Clearly, it was in play today. So we had a run up right on the open, and then we kind of went range bound for most of the day. However, if you'd been watching a list like this, not only would you have seen extremely high volume levels, right at the close, it was on pace to trade 8 times normal share count. We can see that AXPW did finish the day trading 6 million shares, which is probably significantly more than what it normally trades. So, a couple things to point out here. When I'm looking at stocks to potentially trade during the day, of course, those of you who've been with me in the past know that I search for very high volume stocks. These filters are some of the ways that I screen for volume. So if we would have been looking at AXPW at the close, we'd see these values. But let's go back in time just a hair here. Let's go back and see what AXPW looked like, I don't know, I'd say maybe 3.5 hours into the open, right? So let's see here, that'd be close to 10 o'clock my time. So let's go back and look at the time frame here. Let's just look at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Okay, so now if you take note of the time slice up here, this is what the list looked like between 10 and 10:05 Pacific Daylight Time, 1 to 1:05 Eastern Daylight Time. So we can see AXPW here at that point in time, it only traded 1.8 million shares. And at this point in time, it was still turning in a very healthy relative volume number. But at this point in time, I'm looking at 5-minute volume, and by the way, 100 in any of these volume columns is normal volume for that time period. So I can see at that point in time, I guess AXPW was taking a little breather because 1-minute volume had fallen below 100. So it had dipped slightly below normal at that point in time. Now, 5-minute metrics, I like them. A lot of people like them. But I typically also like to see the 1-minute metric up here. Now, some of you may have already tried this in the past, but for example, if we go to the search field, or if, we search for volume filters, well, I can see there's volume in the 5, 10, 15, and 30-minute period, but where's the 1-minute volume? The 1-minute volume doesn't exist in native format in the top list. The smallest time frame is 5-minute. However, it is possible for me to create a custom filter and insert the 1-minute volume into this list. So I'm going to show you the process by which we would go about that. And so, first off, what you would, as a user, would have to do would simply be to navigate to the website. So stand by 1 second, and I will show you that exact process and exactly where to go. So here we are at the Trade Ideas homepage. We scroll to the bottom, and we can just click on Account Management here. Now, everybody needs to keep in mind, you will need to be logged in to the website. So I'm currently logged in here. I'm in the Account Management section. So I would come over here and click on Custom Formulas. Now, we're in my account. We can see these are all the custom formulas that I currently have installed into my system. If we scroll down here to the bottom, this is the 1-minute volume filter. So let's just take a peek in there and see what it looks like. I'll click on Edit. And so when you go to create a custom formula, this is the conduit by which you do it. So this little piece of information right here is the code for volume in the 1-minute period. And then we go on to set up what the description is, how we'd like to see it. Now you might be asking yourself, well, where in the world did you get this formula? And we've got a list of formulas here. So if I pull this browser over now, I'm in another part of account management, which, by the way, this link doesn't show up on the website. It is included in the help document about the custom formula editing process. But I'm sure we could send it out to anybody that wants it here in a little bit. But it is accessible in the help document. So here I am scrolling, looking at all the filter codes. So here are the filters, descriptions, and what the actual code is. So I come down here to 1-minute volume, and really all I would have to do is copy this formula right here. Bracket, VOL, 1, close bracket. So you can see this is the formula. So once we put the formula in there and click Save, when I right-click and go back into Configure and go to my search list all the way to the bottom, there we can see. And by the way, when we set up these custom formulas, we always pick anywhere from U1 to U99 to be that filter. So it's a pretty easy process. I just chose U99 for this one. So there's U99. So all of a sudden, come back in here to columns. Let's say I want to get rid of the bigger time frames and only have 5 and 1 minute in there. All we would need to do is find the filter, add the filter, come over here to columns, select it here and push it over to the left, at which point in time, here is the new filter. So we can always just drag it right over here and sit it right beside the 5-minute volume. So now, not only have we programmed a custom formula, but now we've imported it into this window. Okay, so as you can see here, let me pop back over here to my custom list. That is a very simple custom formula, but as you can see, as I'm scrolling through some of the other formulas that I've set up here, whereas this one is just a simple formula for that filter, you can see that some of these get a lot more complex. And so, typically the people who have had a little bit of coding experience in the past are going to warm up to this a little bit easier. But even if you've had zero coding experience in the past, once you have the key, which is the filter codes, and, as long as you're familiar with some, basic math, it just takes a little bit of getting used to. But it builds on itself just like anything else does. And of course, if you ever get stuck, we're always here to help you to the best of our abilities. All right, so before we move along, And I don't know if Dan is listening out there. But before we started getting everything prepared today, Dan sent over a very interesting screenshot. And I'm going to display it to you real quick here. So this is a snapshot that he took right about the time, it was probably about 9:50, I believe. Yeah, 9:56, about almost 10 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. And it was regarding HPW, which not only was on the radar because of the extreme volume levels that it was doing for the day as far as relative volume goes, but most of the day it was also doing extremely high 1 minute, 5 minute, 10-minute volume as well. There's no surprise there because a lot of the times when you see the high relative volume correlations, you're going to see the correlation in smaller time frames. But something that goes overlooked by a lot of people these days, and it kind of takes me back to the old days of when I was studying for my Series 7 way back in the 90s about floats and how the stocks with smaller floats can be a lot more volatile when the volume comes in just because there's less shares to go around. So if I pull the screenshot of Dan's back up, noting that this is the time, about 10 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, AXPW was alerted, and if we look at percent of float traded, which is kind of hard to see there, was already at, so at that time, it had already traded almost 50% of the shares that are in the float. So I've added that column here, and once again, this is another custom formula. Percent of float traded. So with, at 10 o'clock, between 10 and 10:05, we can see it had even traded a little bit more. So with 3 hours in the market to go, 52.78% of all remaining shares had already traded. So over half the float. That's always another good indicator that the stock is going to make a move. And if we look at the intraday here, that was about, that signal was generated somewhere right about here. And then, look what happened. We got that nice push up even higher. So, it's even better when you have all the hardcore metrics like relative volume. But then again, we all know that relative volume, even though it's a good number, it's not the holy grail because it can go down just as well as it can go up. So that's a good place to start. It's like the flare gun that says, look at me. Okay? But then when we see this high metric coupled with strong volume on the smaller time frames, and then we see that half the float's turned over, I mean, that's a trifecta of goodness as far as, is this a good signal or not? Most people are looking at one metric, two metrics. Well, these are three high-quality metrics that all happen to converge at the same time, and then you have something like this happen, and then, traded up above $3 a share there on that last move. So just trying to point out some, I guess you'd have to call these a little bit unorthodox, but as I say to many people all the time during the training sessions, there are so many ways to ask the same question, and there's something to be said about taking information and metrics that have been around since the dawn of the markets that everybody's familiar with, but rearranging them into other formats and using them as verifying metrics when you see other trusted metrics fire. That opens up a whole new world in and of itself. Okay. So I hope that makes it clear as to how we can, use colorization, not only in one format to change the structure of a single cell, but how we can sort by the column that we like the default sort by as well. Custom formulas, you have to log into the website, set up your custom formula. Once you do that, it's going to show up in your formula at the bottom of your filter list, if you're looking at the search tab, as these U icons. All right, so moving right along here, I guess Dan's not going to grace us with his presence today, but in any case, before we move on to the other part of the webinar, the question and answer session, I want to point out a couple of other windows that go very, very underutilized, and those would be the compare count windows. And I'm going to use a very simple example by just spawning one from complete scratch here. So here we go. So maybe some of you have seen a compare count window before, maybe some of you have not, but when we spawn a compare count window for the very first time, we've got two different sides to deal with. We've got a green side and a red side. Now I'm just going to click OK, and this is what a compare count window looks like by default when we first spawn one. It's just going to be looking at new highs versus new lows across the broad markets. For those of you who are familiar with the tick metric on the New York Stock Exchange, the tick just signifies advancers versus decliners. So we can do the same thing right here, but we can also do so much more. So if we go back into configure, green data side, red data side, by clicking configure, it's basically like each side, the red and the green, they are their own alert window. So you can see here, the only alerts that are checked off, anything hitting a high, whether it be pre-market, post-market, or during the regular session. And with these filters in place, you know, you might as well not have anything. So if we did this and said, just show me, I don't care if it's the most thinly traded stock on the planet, if it's going up, if it's hitting a high, if it's hitting a low, I want you to tell me about it. So in this case, in essence, what we would be doing is setting up, for lack of a better phrase, a tick. Now, we could curtail that to whatever markets we want to focus on, but if we just said, okay, now we've set up basically a tick for the U.S. equity markets, and that would be fine and good. However, let me adjust this one as well. Okay, so now we've got a window that's going to show us advancers versus decliners across the entire markets. And of course, I always prefer the dark background, so just in case you didn't see how I did that, when you want white background or you'd like the dark background. So in any case, this is showing us highs and lows across the whole market. Now, let me just pull a scenario at random here. Let's say tomorrow morning, small gap down of 1/4 to 1/2 a point. Maybe we go sideways all day tomorrow. Maybe we don't. But I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. So if we were watching, let's say we did gap down slightly and then we just flatlined all day, and we were watching this advancers versus decliners window, more than likely we'd see a ratio favoring the red side. Now that could be 60% red, 40% green, or 65% red, 35% green, but more than likely we'd see overall down. More stocks hitting lows than stocks hitting highs. Now, what if I did this, though? What if I right-clicked and duplicated that window, which, keep in mind, you can duplicate any window at Trade Ideas, not just these guys. And then I went into this one and I said, okay, now with this version, I only want to see stocks hitting highs or lows where the relative volume is at least 2. Went here and changed the same thing here. Now I can guarantee you one thing. This window, as the day progresses, is going to look a whole lot different than this window. Because yes, we're having more selling than buying in the markets. Market's going to be red. Indexes are going to be red. Now, of course, we never know until we watch. All of a sudden, this one that's only paying attention to stocks hitting highs and lows with relative volume of 2 or greater, that might be going with the market, or what you might find out is that, okay, seems like the stocks with relative volume of 2 or higher, there might be a buying bias going on there, even though the overall market is down. And keep in mind, this example that I'm showing you here with these compare count windows is just about as basic as it gets. You know, we can get very complex and show all kinds of cool things with these compare count windows. So I just wanted to briefly touch base on these so that those of you out there shaking your head right now going, you know what, I really need to start paying attention to these guys, because not only can they show you some interesting, it's not so much a specific setup or play, but it's to help you feel more confident about the direction that you're going, right? Because just because the market's red and there's more selling than buying doesn't always mean that short is the best way to go. Okay, so Scott, how are we doing on time?
We're doing pretty good. We're half past the hour.
Okay, well, at this point, why don't we shift it over to the Q&A session, and then if Dan decides that he wants to chime in with anything, we'll have time for that.
All right. If anyone has any questions, whether it's about today's lessons from Jamie or something else related to trade ideas, go ahead and type that into the questions panel. We've got one from Stuart. Well, let's see. Oh, we've got one from John here before that. How delayed is a compare count window compared to like a new high-low alert window? I believe they'd be the same.
Yes, exactly.
As fast as your connection.
The compare count window is basically utilizing two different alert windows within itself. So, whereas the alert window reports in real time down to the second, that same reporting is going to be carried out in the compare count window. So it should be real time down to the second, just like the alert windows.
So Stuart has a custom layout. When he tries to add a new window from a channel bar to his layout, he can't seem to get rid of the external linking window to keep the external linking window from popping up when he clicks on the ticker from the window. Yeah.
Okay, I think I know what's happening. He's not linked, right? But then he clicks here, and he clicks on a symbol, because keep in mind, if we just pop in here to tools real quick here, options. Number one, we can say double click or single click. So I don't know if he's double clicking or single clicking, but if he's not linked and then he clicks here, the software thinks he wants to link. So it's going to pull up the linking window for him. I'm trying to think to myself, I'm on the developer's version, so I'm already linked to our charts. So I'm not getting the linking box to pop up. Now, if I was on the 3.0 version and I was not linked and I clicked here, then the linking box would pop up. So I'd probably have to get in there and fiddle around with the settings to get that to stop. I mean, I think that's a very easy thing to fix, but I might just need to have some eyes on before I could diagnose the problem.
So if Stuart doesn't have a solution to it now, he should just go ahead and email info@TradeIdeas, and then we'll figure it out for him.
Yeah, exactly. I could always get on with him tomorrow to troubleshoot that, but that should be a pretty easy fix.
Cool. Carl's asking, because the top list is so fluid, is there a way to tell if a stock has moved up or down?
Oh yeah, so for example, that's what this list is doing right here. This is the change in 30-minute period, and we have a wide variety of change filters. So this shows you how much, lets you say, okay, I would like to see a stock that has ran up or down X amount of dollars or percentage in a certain time frame, anywhere from 2 minutes to 120 minutes with this family of filters. So this is exactly what this list is doing right here. This is showing me stocks that have moved significant amounts in the past 30 minutes. So, at 10 to 10:05 Pacific Daylight Time, AXPW had just run up 4.9% in the past 30 minutes. Then we can sort by, stocks that have ran down. So at that point in time, WG had just ran down negative 2.9% in the past 30 minutes. So does that help clarify his question?
Well, we'll see, Carl. If it doesn't address it, or if we misunderstood, just ask again, please. John says, do you anticipate a version of Trade Ideas for the Mac? My understanding is that we're not currently looking at making a version that runs natively on Mac, but Trade Ideas Pro, the downloadable version, runs great in VMware or Parallels. And we also have a web version. The new web version has virtually all the features in Trade Ideas Pro. We don't have charting in it yet, and I'll send that link to him. But it does quite a bit of it. It's basically everything except for charting right now. It also has the oddsmaker backtesting tool built in, if you have access to that. It has all the same alerts and filters and backtesting capability. That's Trade Ideas, the full downloadable version. So For Mac, right now your best bet is to use Trade Ideas for the web, or install VMware or Parallels, and install Trade Ideas on a emulated Windows version on your Mac, or dual boot. Yeah, Joe, we're going to have a recording of this up probably by tomorrow in the appropriate playlist. Let me see.
Right. I just pulled up the web version just so people could get a quick peek at it real quick here.
Paul is asking if we can send the full URL for this 30-minute top list so he can download it from the cloud. Could you could you just pop that top list cloud link into the chat?
Yeah. Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
Sure.
Huh. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Well, not sure if you got a development version there.
Yeah. That's why I'm on the old developers version. So stand by. Well, that's probably because I logged myself out accidentally.
Yeah, that's when you logged into the web version.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay, try that again. There you go. So it wasn't even a beta. Okay. Wasn't even a beta bug. Okay, there we go.
No. Okay.
Just
so stand by.
Yeah, just user error.
Exactly. Would you like me just to send that out to?
You could pop that in the regular chat.
You want me to give it to you?
Or you give it to me and I'll pass it on if you want to Skype.
Okay, hold on 1 sec.
You don't have the question window open. I'll make sure to pass that on to Paul and make it available for everyone at the same time.
Stand by. There we go. Okay, you got that, Scott?
All right, it's in chat. I got it.
Okay.
There you go. So it should be shared with everyone. And if anyone else didn't get it and still wants it, you can probably email us, and I'll keep it saved on my desktop just in case I see that come through. Yeah, John, about the MacBook, if you do want any assistance installing that on a VMware Parallel so you can get TI Pro, the download version, just shoot an email to info@tradeideas.com. Well, Russ has a feature request. Fareed's on, okay. Oh, regarding a stock, okay, Carl's question about stuff running up or running down, I think we misunderstood or I misread that. He was actually wondering if there's a way on the top list to tell if a stock has moved up or down on the top list before, since it's kind of fluid and it refreshes every 30 seconds.
Oh, you mean whether or not it was on the list prior?
Yeah, I know you can change the history setting and go back in time, like what time the top list is pulled from. But is there
right? And yeah, I mean, just the general rule of thumb. See, with the top list filter set here is that, since these filters are always working in the all or none equation, that stocks will disappear off of the list if they no longer meet the filter requirements. So, notice that all we're seeing here are stocks that have moved at least 1.5% up or down. So if the stock showed up because it made a 1.5% or greater move to the upside or the downside, but then in the next 30-minute period it did not, then it would not be shown. So, in essence, it has to be the animal that I'm hunting. If it's not that animal, it's not going to show up. So it has to meet this criteria to either be on the list or fail to meet the criteria, then it's removed from the list. But you can go back and look at 5-minute blocks, because every time we set up this historical time frame here to look at, if I just put the start time, then it's going to show me that time plus 5 minutes. So you can always go back in 5-minute blocks to see if the stock was showing up on the list at that time. So I hope that I understood the question properly.
Yeah, and I think he can also, if he wants to look at a specific time frame, he can just set his, like you could set it to look at yesterday at 10 in the morning, for example, and see what
absolutely, yeah, sure.
So Joseph said, can we get percent floater Jerry Gold? I'm not sure if the Jerry Gold is a Seinfeld reference or if there's something else that you get there.
can we get, so in other words, he wants the percent of float traded filter.
It says, can we get percent floater Jerry Gold?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is that a noun?
Yeah, you can type that question again. You can clarify that question for us if you want there, so maybe we can answer it later on. Another one from Farid. When TIQ custom algorithms will be available? I think maybe there's a new TIQ feature. I'm not really too up on I know there's some new stuff in development, but I'm not too close to it.
Well, I know some stuff was being done Friday and over the weekend regarding that as well, but I don't know where it is in the process. We've got, for those of you who are familiar with how deadlines work in software, then there's never there's never a solid time. It's more like, well, it's ready when it's ready. However, Scott, I think there's a couple different things that we've got in the queue. TIQ, of course, which that all ties into grids as well. But then before that, we had the optimized channel, which is running a little bit behind schedule.
Yeah,
right?
That'll be coming out this month sometime.
Right. So keeping our fingers crossed, the AI channel will make its debut sometime this month. And then I think once that job is done, then a lot of resources will be poured into the TIQ/grids project. Scott, you probably know more about that development timeline than I do at this point.
Yeah, there's the only thing I kind of sort of know a date on is the AI channel, the optimized channel, and that we're shooting for September launch on that. But Farid, if you have more questions about that, just email us info@, and I'll see if Brad has a better pulse on that for you. Let me see. Debbie says she'd like to change colors so the darkest positive values are the darkest green and the largest negative values are the darkest red. I think that might be a default in that top list gradient setting thing there for that, right? It seems to be pretty common.
Right. It's basically, well, since I to the wrong place here. So like if you want to set up a red gradient, you can always come here and say delete everything. And then we can say, okay, let's use let's use this color scheme. Of course, we have to start setting up values. So, assuming that the metric that we're looking at is based between 1 and 5 or whatever, you would say, okay, if the value is greater than 1, then I would like to use this color. And then we say add edit, and it will start adding them up. It's always going to be the greater side, the less than side, or the equal portion of the equation. And so the color scheme, it takes a little bit of getting used to. Now, if you get in there and figure out you can't make any progress, or if you get confused, which it is easy to do when you're first trying to get used to this little mechanism. So, if you get in there and you're having difficulties, by all means, reach out to me, reach out to info@tradeideas.com. Be more than happy to get in there and give you a little 15, 20-minute training session on how to use the colorization, show you some shortcuts, try to take the confusion out of it for you. No problem there. So anybody that needs that help, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, Paul's asking. He was talking with Brad on Friday. I think he had a training session with Brad. Is there a standalone watch list that we can put tickers that we have been looking? I think he means he might be. I'm not sure if you want to clarify that, Paul, but I think he's talking about stock lists.
Well, let me throw out this scenario, and he can tell me if I'm accurate. So let's say we have an alert window that's producing signals in the first 30 minutes of the day. Then we would like to take those symbols and put them into a custom symbol list to have additional windows monitor those symbols. Am I off base there, or am I getting it kind of right?
Yeah, he says yes.
Okay, so unfortunately, there's no way to automate that just yet. So, like, for example, if I come down here and load up one of my alert windows real quick here. Let's just use this one as an example. So, if we were looking at the history for this guy today, any time frame. So obviously we've got a lot of symbols coming through here at any given point in time of the day. As these symbols come out, it would be nice if we could have a symbol list auto update. We might have that functionality in the future, but right now it does not exist. So right now, to compile that list, well, let's say we wanted to collect all symbols for the first 30-minute period and then put those into a separate ticker. Okay, so what I could do is this. In order to quickly get that information, I could save contents, and when we do this, it saves it into a spreadsheet format, so I can save those contents. Then I can open the contents up, okay, well, didn't look like it saved anything. Hold on. Huh. I think this is a dev version issue, Scott. I'm trying to save the contents and make sure I've got contents to save. Yeah, okay. So, in other words, everybody, and let me know if this makes sense, I could copy and paste the contents of this alert window into a spreadsheet and simply click on the symbol column, copy all of those symbols in. Once I do that, it's real easy just to pop on over to Tools and Symbol List, create a new list, name the list. So once I name that list, all I would have to do is right-click and paste all those symbols in there, and then have the window watch the symbols. So unfortunately, that's a manual process. So if you have a window with a lot of symbols coming through it, it would make sense to right-click and save the contents, use the spreadsheet format. But if it's a window that has fairly limited symbols coming through it, then you could easily manually compile that list and then have the system watch that list.
Oh, I figured out the Jerry Gold thing. It was the name of a strategy that Dan posted in the chat room this morning, so I don't have that. I don't know if you do.
Ah, okay.
Well, Barry might have it. Barry could post it in the chat if he's got it. If not, email info@tradeideas.com and ask Dan for it, and we'll grab it for you.
Yeah, no problem there.
Let's see, what else? See if there's any more questions. Well, Carl's got a feature request for support and resistance lines. I'll make a note of that. Oh, Paul's currently using a workaround for the list by going eSignal watch list, external link to charts, so I guess that can work too.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
If anyone's got any more questions, please type them into the chat. If nothing else, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the handout panel on your GoToWebinar interface there, and open that up, and you'll get see a PDF with a link in it on like the second or third page to go ahead and submit a topic. And it's also going to have that same slide that Jamie was just showing that has a discount code to thank you for joining us. It can take 50% off your first month, a quarter off your first year, a quarter off the odds maker cost. Also, we have a link in there to the 1088 package by going to that bit.ly link. You can type that into your browser directly or just open your handout and click through. It's a great way to get on board with Trade Ideas and save money, or grab the odds maker if you don't have it already. There we go. I think there's a couple more questions in there now. I guess the cloud link I gave out. Hey, Bill, go ahead and email info@tradeideas.com with that about the link, and we'll help you out there. Let's see. Hey, Joe. Yeah, we do understand that Trade Ideas is very sophisticated. There's lots of stuff. We don't really have a plans on publishing an ebook through Amazon. If anything, we'll have some new some new documentation available for free for our subscribers on our website. If anyone has anything else that we can answer directly now, go ahead and type that in. Otherwise,
by the way, I see Carl was asking about, he doesn't see turbo brakes up and down on the surging channel anymore.
Okay.
And so, Carl, real quick here, you can pull up any alert window and basically go into configure. And the pre-configured strategies over here on the left, the bullish and the bearish, they're both going to have turbo brakes in there. Turbo brakes in the bullish, up for the upside, turbo brakes down for the bearish, and the bearish strategy side there. No problem.
Okay, Paul's still having an issue loading a link from the cloud. Hey, Paul, just go ahead and email me. You already have my email. Email me, Scott@TradeIdeas.com. I'll try and help you troubleshoot that. Because you should be able to load cloud links. Hey, John, there's the delay to saving to cloud. It's just the same as uploading a small bit of data to the web. It totally depends on your internet. Thanks, Dallas. I think a few people got that. Anyone who didn't get the link for Jerry Gold, it's in the chat, but just email info@tradeideas.com. We'll have it available. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions, email info@trade-ideas.com. Hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Again, follow that link to the link in the handouts to the suggestions page, and go ahead and submit that if there's topics you want us to cover. There's a lot to trade ideas, so there's a lot of topics we can cover. It's pretty much inexhaustible before we have to repeat ourselves. Thanks, John. Yeah, do send that email. We'll help you out. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jamie. Do you want to say goodbye?
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's always fun doing these things, showing people, new ways to use the software. And other than that, just good luck trading, everybody, for the week. And it should be a very interesting fall, to say the least.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.